and Senate Council is on.
Well, I think that's pretty good. Why don't we just,
and Fiscal Analyst.
so let me just be fairly formal here for just a second. I'd like to call this meeting of the Senate Jobs and Economic Growth Committee to order. Members, we have one item on the agenda today with Commissioner Steve Grove to give us a quick update. Commissioner Grove has a hard stop that he has to get to, and so we want to be very cognizant of the commissioner's time. But before we get started, just a couple of housekeeping items, if you don't mind. I want to remind everybody that this is an official meeting of the committee, and it is being recorded. This is the first time we've tried to hold a committee meeting via Zoom or any sort of platform like this. So please be patient with us as we work through some of the kinks. I would ask that we allow Commissioner Grove to get through his presentation before we ask questions. If we have questions after Commissioner Grove has to leave, Deputy Commissioner Mckinnon will be able to answer our questions. If you do want to ask a question, there's the raised hand function, and Mr. Eilers will be tracking that and letting me know who's got a question. And then just a reminder, and I know we've all been on these, please mute yourself if you're not speaking. So I want to thank everybody for coming today. Commissioner Grove, thank you for being with us today. And why don't we go ahead and get started. So Commissioner Grove, please feel free to begin when you're ready.
Great. Well, thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the committee. I appreciate the chance to engage with you once again in a setting we probably never imagined we'd be engaging here on video conference, but such as the times that we're in. And I appreciate the chance to give you an update on the work that we've been doing at the Department of Employment and Economic Development, and primarily to hear your questions, because I'm really eager to hear what is on your mind and what questions I can answer in today's hearing. I thought I'd split my comments up into kind of three buckets of things that we're working on. One would be on employment insurance. The second would be the work that we're doing on stay-at-home and the reopening of businesses when that time comes. And then third, I thought we could give an update on small business assistance and some of the loan vehicles at the federal and state level we've been working on. So I'll start with unemployment insurance, which, as we all know, is become the most important backstop we have in our state to help workers who are separated from their jobs. We hit a milestone this week, not a good milestone, but a milestone nonetheless, of having received twice as many applications for unemployment in the last month than we had in all of 2019. We had 219,625 active accounts in all of 2019. And since March 16th, we've seen 451,790 applications. Over 90% of those individuals applying in the last month have never used unemployment insurance before. It's a staggering set of numbers. These are, of course, not just numbers, they're people whose lives have been completely disrupted by this pandemic and who are relying on us as a state and certainly DEED as a department to help them in their time of need. And so we have really focused so much of our effort on making sure that we are running a great program for the people who deserve it, and that our team is working around the clock to help people get unemployment insurance benefits quickly, efficiently, and answer all the difficult questions that come with what is really a pretty complex program. Just a demographic update of the numbers, just to continue to give a picture of where we're at as a state. About 14% of Minnesota's labor force has applied for unemployment insurance so far. 15% of the applications are under 25, 21% are over 55. We've seen the crisis hit communities of color far greater than the white population. About 12.2% of all white Minnesota workers have applied for unemployment insurance, and 26% of the labor force that is comprised of people of color have applied. So, like so many things, this crisis has hurt some of our more challenged populations at a greater rate than our white workforce. The crisis has hit those with less education more than those with more education. 25% of the applications have come from those with a high school diploma or less. And also, it has hit women a little bit harder than men. We have about 55% of our applications have come in from women and about 45% from men. And traditionally, in normal economic times, that rate is closer to 50-50. In fact, leans a little bit more towards men than women. So as you can imagine, and we've talked about before, and I've talked about with a lot of you personally in one-on-one settings, we've had to do a lot to support this demand. We have authorized thousands of hours of overtime for our UI staff. We're now working 7 days a week on this challenge, as we should be. We've hired 50 staff temporarily to take additional phone calls. We've posted another 20 job openings just yesterday. We got 9 new workers in this week. So we're coming up on 100 total new workers that we'll have brought on board to help with the crisis. We've opened our application lines from 60 hours a week up to 84 hours a week. We have a benefit request schedule that goes by the day and is synced to your social security number so that our system can be more efficient and effective in delivering those benefits and getting to people's applications quickly. We've doubled the number of servers that we use to run our employment insurance system so that it doesn't crash. We've seen in over 10 states across the country, their platforms have literally crumbled and they have not been able to serve folks because their platforms have fallen apart. We're working very hard to make sure that doesn't happen here in Minnesota. And we have increased the capacity for our phone lines and just made lots of changes to our self-service system, of course, to help workers in their time of need. That on top of course, the executive orders the governor has signed just to make sure the program is opened up and moving swiftly for all those affected by COVID-19. One of the big areas of focus in the past few weeks since the CARES Act has passed has been to get those additional federal benefits into the hopper for Minnesotans. And the first step we were able to take was last week when we authorized the additional $600 per week that the CARES Act made possible. We are the first state in the country to do this, and we are now paying out to over 230,000 people in our state this additional $600 per week that is funded entirely by the federal government, signed into law by the federal government, and that we as a state wanted to move as fast as possible to institute. Applicants do not need to do anything additional to get that money. Anybody who's eligible for UI is eligible for that $600. It's a flat rate. It applies to everyone who's eligible. You won't see that payment in your online unemployment account. You'll only see it in your bank account. And it's just an important lever to help Minnesotans get through a difficult time. The second federal component of the CARES Act for unemployment insurance that we have gotten up and running just happened this morning. We have now instituted the additional 13 weeks of eligibility that came through the CARES Act, again, paid for by the federal government, passed by the federal government. We are, I think, also the first state to get that benefit up and running. Those benefits should be available to applicants starting today. We think there's about 8,000 Minnesotans who are at or very near the end of their usually allotted amount of unemployment insurance. And so that 13-week extension is critical for them because so many can't find or even search for jobs right now, given the economic crisis that we are in. And so those 13 weeks extend beyond your 26 weeks of benefits. And again, an important component of that federal act that will be backdated to the eligible date at which the CARES Act was passed by the federal government. The last and in many ways most important, I guess I shouldn't say it's most important, but certainly it's the most asked about federal policy that has come through is pandemic unemployment insurance. And I know you all are hearing about this every day from your constituents. This is the unemployment insurance benefits that will help the self-employed and independent contractors get benefits from a program that they would usually never be eligible for. And this is an extraordinarily important move the federal government has made. And it is also incredibly complex. Usually when these kinds of benefits are passed for the self-employed, they are done so under the context of disaster unemployment insurance, which is very localized to a specific location that's been hit by a natural disaster, flood or a fire or a tornado or what have you. What essentially the federal government has done is taken that very sort of narrow and localized product and scaled it to the entire United States of America, which is an incredible move and also comes with a lot of complexities. And we want to be very, very sure, as every state does, that we're preventing the very real challenges that states will have with fraud as it relates to that program. when you're opening up eligibility that wide, you're really opening yourself up to attacks by bad actors who are going to try to raid our trust fund from the benefits that hardworking Minnesotans deserve. And so for that reason, you can't just use the same application flow and the same platform that you use for regular unemployment insurance. You have to build almost like an entirely new federal program at the state level to get this right. And so our team is working 7 days a week, night and day, on building out the technology that's needed there. Very close partnerships with, for example, the Department of Public Safety on ensuring that we can verify every applicant as a real person using some data sharing. Very important partnerships with the Department of Revenue to determine income levels that will help us ensure we get the right benefit payments to people, no more, no less. Again, plus that $600, which does apply to the self-employed as well. And we're being really vigilant on this. No state in the country has begun paying these benefits yet to the self-employed. We believe we're a little bit ahead of the curve because of the fact that we are actually accepting applications from the self-employed right now. And that's important to note. We ask that anyone who's self-employed and is eligible for unemployment insurance benefits under the CARES Act applies. Even though you'll get denied, it's important that you do it because you'll be in the system, and then we will proactively reach out to you as soon as the technology is finished so that you start to get those benefits rolling in. So most states are discouraging people from even applying. We're saying do it because we want you in our system. We want you queued up to reduce the period of time between which we finish this build and you're able to get your money. So, I think that's an important message for your constituents. We know that for so many, waiting is not a fun thing to do and patience isn't a fun thing to be asked for. I can just tell you that the department is working around the clock, like every state is, ramping up that program so that people can take advantage of it. And lastly, on unemployment insurance, we have begun to do some modeling, as you can imagine, and I've been talking to Senator Pratt and Senator Champion and others about this, of just how long our trust fund has given the current trend rates in unemployment insurance. And, as I think everyone here knows well, the trust fund that our state uses to pay out these benefits is based on the unemployment insurance tax that an employer pays every year on the taxable wage base for their business. And those rates differ by employer based on how often they've had to take advantage of the program. In other words, we try to incentivize people not to lay folks off, and therefore, if you're not laying folks off, you're paying a little bit less into the trust fund. But it's that trust fund that helps make this whole program work, and it's all Minnesota dollars, other than the CARES Act piece. But just in terms of the core program, it's all Minnesota dollars. And we have, as a state, been very judicious, and I've often been, I think, necessarily so in a seasonal economy, generous with our benefits. And so we have a strong trust fund heading into this crisis. We started the crisis with about $1.5 billion in the trust fund. So we begin to model, how long do we have in our current trust fund in order to ensure we can pay benefits? And there's a couple projections I want to outline for everyone to understand what we're looking at here. The most likely scenario is that we assume that the curve of benefit payments starts with the amount that we're paying out every week right now, which is about $76 million. That's about how much we paid out last week. But if you assume a growing pool of applicants, which we of course do assume, the numbers are trailing a bit or tailing off a bit since in the past couple of weeks, but they're still strong. You consider that maybe we'd get to roughly a maximum of about 105 million in weekly payouts in, let's say, May. And then as the stay-at-home orders lifted and parts of the economy begin to reopen, of course, we estimate that trust fund or that weekly amount will go down. And so if you model on that scenario, we would be in a scenario in which we would estimate the trust fund would have adequate resources to pay the benefits without having to take a loan from the federal government. And so that's a scenario that we're paying attention to. The other scenario would be, what if at the rate of benefits we're paying out now, which is, again, 76 million roughly per week, if that was to go on indefinitely, like if that just never changed in the coming months, we'd have adequate resources to pay out benefits through October. So I think the first scenario is more likely. The second scenario, we wanted to just give a comparison. And of course, I think, we're going to continue to model this week over week to see where we get, and we'll be happy to share the updates to that model as we go. This, of course, assumes that the tax receipts will not be severely affected. Tax receipts are something we can't accurately estimate at this time. So there are some components here that, like in any estimate that we're making as that relates to the economy right now, are caveated by some things. But that's the state of the model as it sits right now. And I would say that just for context, what happens when the trust fund runs out. Many of you know this, and many of you were here in 2009 when that last happened in Minnesota. What took place then is what takes place in every state, which is that we take a no interest loan from the federal government, and that they often forgive a lion's share of it. So in 2009, during the recession, Minnesota took out a $700 million loan to pay off unemployment insurance benefits once our trust fund ran dry. And we ended up only paying back 10% of it as per the federal government's guidance. So we're working right now with a bunch of other states, the National Governors Association and other bodies, to advocate for a similar result from the federal government in the future. And I think every state's facing the same thing, but that's kind of what we'd be looking at if we did run through the trust fund. So that's kind of the update on unemployment insurance. I want to talk briefly about reopening businesses and about our small business programs, and then I would be eager to hear your questions. I think, on the reopening business front, I know this is a topic that is of great interest to everyone in the state, and certainly to this committee, for whom it is extremely relevant, and all your constituents, most importantly, who are, many of them, at least 18% of our workers in the state, are on pause during the stay-at-home period. And we know so many are working from home and in their businesses if they're in critical businesses. That's about 82% of the state, but you've got 18% of the state that is not. And so when the governor extended the stay-at-home order last week through Executive Order 2033, he included in it the direction that our department here at DEED, alongside our colleagues at DLI and at Department of Health and other commissioners as well, begin planning for what going back to work looks like, both in the long term, of course, but even in the short term. Is there something in the short term where you could safely begin to have some workers go back to work and practice the same kinds of social distancing guidelines that we're seeing society more broadly follow, and we're seeing critical businesses follow as well? And I think the benefit there is we're learning from the innovations that the critical businesses are using on site when they engage in social distancing and other health precautions. So we're working really methodically on this to get a recommendation to the governor about when businesses and what kinds of businesses could safely begin reopening. These recommendations are rooted in health. They're fact and science-based decisions. The last thing we want to do is reverse the great progress that the people of Minnesota have bought us by staying at home. And at the same time, we want to make the common sense decisions that will keep our economy going, because not only is that important for our economy, but it's also important for our health. And the governor recognizes that, and we discuss it and review options every day. So the process that we're going through here is really expansive. We're talking to business leaders from all over the state. We have twice weekly calls with all the state chambers. We have a couple of different advisory groups focused on social distancing and economic security that we are leveraging for advice. We're talking to CEOs and a lot of critical sector industries and how they've managed to land this right, what they're learning, what's challenging and what's not. I think no matter where we land on this, and it is an ongoing process, we want to make sure that what we do is rooted in both making sure every business has a plan for how they would apply CDC guidelines to their business, and that the proper health screening is in place for employees when they show up, so that we're able to catch cases. No one wants to end up in a place like the pork plant did in Smithfield, where you've got an entire business coming in and everyone gets infected very quickly because of the rapid contagion of this disease that would then lead to the business shutting down. We are taking submissions from the public as well on ideas for the best ways social distancing can happen. We've had, I think at this point, over 400 submissions from businesses and labor leaders across the state. You can point businesses in your Senate districts to mn.gov/deed/critical, where the online form is there. We synthesize that data every day. We take a look at the kinds of industries that are submitting, the kinds of lessons they're submitting. It's really a rich trove of learning that we're using to methodically go through this, and the process is ongoing. So that's the update on the back to work piece. And then I think just lastly, because I'm eager to get to your questions, I want to talk about small business. As you know, we've done everything we can in the state to take advantage of every federal penny first before we put in Minnesota's taxpayer dollars into play here. And the SBA programs are the first step and the most important step in that effort. The Paycheck Protection Program, which is the critical and biggest program that the SBA put forward, is one that Minnesota was able to take advantage of really quickly because of the strength of our SBA lender network. And in fact, we just found out late last night that we have the third highest loan dollars per capita for that Paycheck Protection Program of any state in the country. We've done 33,819 loans of $7.6 billion total Average loan size for the Paycheck Protection Program in Minnesota is $225,713, which all works out to about $1,350 per capita of paycheck protection dollars that we've put into play in Minnesota. Again, third best in the country. And it's really testament to the SBA and the great lenders across the state that have made that happen, and for the ability of our small businesses to apply. We know there's been some hiccups to the program. The SBA knows it as well. I think it was set up very much such that people could banks could lend to existing customers a lot more effectively. That does leave some people out who aren't banked or banking with an SBA approved lender. And I think even the biggest challenge actually is with the unbanked. We think this is a big problem. It's a huge gap in our current safety net for small businesses because there are many small businesses who are not banked. We'd be eager to work with all of you on what we could do there to provide a safety net for those businesses and allow them to begin to become banked, perhaps with some incentive dollars and other methods. But I think that unbanked sector is a critical sector. We think it's tens of thousands of businesses in the state that are in that boat. And so we know the loans aren't always great in these situations, but the Paycheck Protection Program is very forgivable. And so getting back to that, I think it's something we want to continue to push. The whole country is we've spent about 70% of the money that's been set aside there. So the money's gone pretty quick. And I know that our congressional delegation on both sides of the aisle are really looking at how we can advocate along with other states for more money to be put into the broader pool there for that program, because it allows businesses to keep people on payroll for longer, and it's forgivable if you do that. And it's really going to save jobs in the matter of millions as you think of the entire country. So that SBA program, I think, is the critical piece. And then, we're being as judicious as possible with our state money, right? Because we can't go into debt like the federal government can. We can't print money. So we got to be really careful with how we think about this stuff at the state level. And I think so many of you have helped us think that through, Deed, and have put forward great ideas that we've all passed together on that front. One of them being the Small Business Emergency Loan Program. And, I think that program that allows money to go between $2,500 and $35,000 at a 0% interest rate, 50% forgivable, up to a total available pool of $30 million, really has been, I think, a powerful and important program thus far. I think we're up to about $9 or $10 million total loans to, I want to say we're north of 500 businesses or so at this point. So the program is moving along. It runs through a network of lenders across the state, so that we do cover the state. Several of those lenders target the most disadvantaged and challenged populations in the state. So we think the kind of equity profile of this is going to be pretty good. And by equity, I mean diversity, not equity in terms of the financial term. So we're eager to make sure that program can fill some gaps. And our team at Deed has built an entirely new structure and process led by Kevin Mckinnon, who's also here at this hearing, to make sure that we get that money out as quickly as possible. We're turning these things around usually within 24 hours. We've given ourselves a goal of 36 hours max once an application comes in through a small business lender in our network, to get that money that's encumbered out the door from Deed extremely quickly. So that allocation has been good. We've expanded the program in terms of the number of lenders over time, and we've just had a lot of applications. I actually am looking at the specific numbers here, where at today, $9 million total, 287 total loans across the state, 60-40 Greater Minnesota to Twin Cities, and 33% of those are from organizations that primarily serve people of color. So an important lever in our broader work here. And then the last program that we have is a small business loan guarantee program. And this program helps guarantee loans at a rate of 80% guarantee from private lenders. And you can lend up $200,000 in that program. We put aside $10 million for that program, and it's going to leverage between 20 and 25 million beyond that. We have 68 approved lenders in that program. Most of them are banks, some are nonprofits and credit unions. Most are created in Greater Minnesota. Just one loan approved so far at a rate of $60K. So that was done by a nonprofit lender. We're trying to work with more nonprofits to get them enrolled to guarantee other revolving loan funds that they all have. I would say that program hasn't taken off as much to some degree because the federal government put up a similar guarantee that had slightly more enticing terms than ours after we put ours out. So we'll continue to monitor that and take a look at that program. And I think it is good to have a private sector lever in there, and we'll continue to see how that gets picked up. And then cities have loan funds as well. We gave an executive order to ensure that cities could make their revolving loan funds that ultimately came from the state available to do local lending as well. Cities choose whether they want to do that, but they can follow our lead in making 0% interest rates, 0% interest rate loans available for individuals. And I know that cities are using that program and funds from their MIF exception loans to do loans for business directly as well. So a lot going on here. I guess I just end by saying I really appreciate the partnership with senators on this committee. Senator Pratt and I talk regularly, Senator Champion and I as well, and many of you too. And I just continue to encourage you to reach out even beyond these more formal settings of hearings with questions or thoughts on how DEED can better serve Minnesota at a time when they've never needed our department more. So with that, Senator Pratt, I'd like to turn it back to you and would love to hear questions from you, Mr. Chair, or the rest of the committee.
Well, thank you, Commissioner. And we do have quite a few questions already keyed up. So I'll just list off the up on deck and next up. So we have Senator Little, followed by Senator Upke and Champion. Senator Little.
Thank you, Senator Pratt. Also, thank you, Commissioner Grove. I think your department has just done an excellent job. So, I want to say that personally. I have three questions. They're all somewhat logistics based. So I'll just ask all three if that's okay with you, and then
Please.
You'll be able to run through them. The first is if folks have ideas for industries that can be opened up safely. My first question is, where do you want folks to send those ideas? I think all of us have learned about industries and jobs that we didn't know about 3 weeks ago that certainly can be done safely and make some common sense. So my first question is, where should people send those? My second question is, if people want some additional guidance on the self-employed qualification under UI, where can they go for more information on that? Because obviously when we're trying to explain this and tell people, yes, sign up and get denied, that on the service level is kind of confusing for a lot of folks, and rightly so. So where can we go for that? And then when our offices are receiving some of these questions and whatnot, what is your ideal process for your department? Do you want us to reach out to certain parts of your department or just refer them to a certain area? If you could kind of talk about what the ideal and most efficient structure is for your department, that'd be helpful. Thank you again, Commissioner Grove and Chair Pratt.
Mr. Chair, Senator Little, I think these are all great questions. On the first question, in terms of submitting ideas, we would ask any constituent, any business, any labor organization to go to mn.gov/deed/critical, where you'll find on that page a form. It's just a Microsoft form where you can submit ideas. And we look through it every day. We add it to kind of a rolling data chart we have of ideas that we're getting. And we need more. So would love to hear from more businesses on that form. We're getting hundreds and hundreds of ideas, and we want as many as we can possibly get. Second, on the self-employed Minnesotans who are wanting to get more information on unemployment insurance, uimn.org is the front door for unemployment insurance. On that page, if you click on the applicants section, which is where anybody who's interested in getting unemployment insurance will go, you'll see immediately on the next page a COVID-19 FAQ that's related to the CARES Act. So all the federal government pieces of this. And when you open that up, you'll get information. I agree, it's a somewhat, it's kind of a weird message, like go apply and then we'll deny you. But don't worry, you're not actually denied. It doesn't make a lot of sense to folks, but it's just the situation that we're in. And I think the alternative is to say wait, and then you've got people flooding it the minute that it's eligible. So we've just taken the perspective that even though it's a somewhat weird message, it's a better message than telling everybody to just hold off, because we will be able to proactively reach out to you. And I think we'll be in a better place in other states if we do that. And then lastly, we know that you're all getting flooded by incoming from your constituents, from businesses in your district. It's a stunning scope. We are too, of course, at DEED. To the extent you can point your constituents to the online resources I just mentioned, and to just the mn.gov/deed website, where on the homepage there are COVID-related FAQs targeting workers and targeting businesses. they can find a lot of information there. We know that people at this time want to talk to folks. They want to talk to their leaders. They want that kind of one-on-one connection. And we want to provide that as much as we possibly can. But of course, it doesn't scale for any of us right now. And so those pages are best. I think if you have specific issues that you can kind of aggregate for us that you're seeing as trend lines from the feedback you're getting, reaching out directly to me is fine. Daria Dannon, our legislative director, is also a great person to reach out to directly. But we want to be as responsive as possible. It's an unprecedented amount of incoming that we're all getting, and we owe you our best effort to get you the answers that you need.
Thank you, Commissioner. Thank you, Senator Little. Before we get to Senator Uckey, we've only got Commissioner Grove for another 20 minutes, and then Mr. Mckinnon will be able to answer our questions after that. So we have Senator Uckey and Senator Champion, and then Senator Cohen.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Commissioner. I've got, I'll just rattle off 3 quick questions, and then Commissioner can touch on them as he desires. But the first one is with the unemployment insurance, and we talked about the trust fund and the amount held there. As far as who's getting charged, are the employers going to be charged back some of this? Is it all state funds? Is there a mixture of state and federal? That's one of the issues. And then just to bring up something, I don't know that we can do anything about it right now, but it involves the Paycheck Protection Plan. Some of our people are starting to use that. And with that, they have to retain their employees, of course, and some had laid them off. Now they're willing to hire them back and create some jobs for them to do in the interim. But with the current unemployment and then the additional $600 from the feds, they are making more money sitting at home, and they're not willing to go back to work. So that's an issue that we're hearing about in our smaller communities. And just the third, the reopening of businesses. I would ask that the department maybe be a little bit more on the proactive side rather than just waiting for these things to come in via the from the businesses through the website or an email or whatever. When we drive around our small towns, which got hit the hardest with all this, and we see all the dark storefronts, and then we go past the big box store, and of course they're open. Our little guys can do actually probably even be safer than the big guys because their normal customer counts are lower. So I would ask that you, when you get a chance, take a look at that and see how we can be proactive and start getting these doors open as fast as possible. So thank you, Commissioner.
Mr. Chair, Senator Uckey, those are great questions. I'll take them one by one. The first question had to do with who's paying for this. You know, who gets charged for these unemployment insurance benefits that are hitting record highs. So the trust fund is the source from which all this funding is being drawn down for the typical state benefits. But for all of the benefits that the federal government passed through the CARES Act, so that's that extra $600, that's that extra 13 weeks of coverage, and that will ultimately be the coverage for the self-employed and independent contractors. All that will come from the federal government. We're not being asked to foot that bill here in Minnesota. That's a federal program that will draw down federal dollars from to extend in those ways. In terms of how our trust fund works, it is filled with money that has been paid by through the taxes that businesses have put into it. It was very important to the governor that this crisis not put additional stress on businesses so that they have to cover additional costs and taxes that would come with the truly unprecedented number of applications that are now coming in. And so businesses are not being charged more due to the COVID crisis to fund into that system. Usually they would, just given the more people that are employed in your business, the more you got to pay in. But the governor's executive order in that first week, which was so critical and so quick, was able to ensure that small businesses aren't footing the bill for this crisis, or any business is footing the bill for this crisis as it relates to unemployment insurance. Secondly, your question on Paycheck Protection Program and employees or employers who are trying to hold on to employees that are struggling because of how generous the unemployment insurance benefits are. I hear you. I agree. This is a very real challenge. And while, of course, we're grateful for that money from the federal government and we're doing everything we can to make that available to Minnesotans, it does create kind of a weird incentive structure. There's no question. And as in our analysis, we've looked at this, the magic number is like $1,200. If you make $1,200 a week or less, then unemployment insurance benefits could be on the whole, just if you look at the numbers only, more beneficial to you than your job. Now, you can't just quit to get on UI. The system is not built to allow folks to quit for that reason. But I think the bigger concern is the one that you've highlighted, Senator, which is when you're trying to get people to go back into work or to take jobs in critical sector industries. Let's take personal care aides, for example, of which there's a huge shortage right now. The incentives are not where you wish that they would be. And so we've been talking to our congressional delegation about this, because the kinds of incentive pay programs you would need to incentivize workers to take some of these critical sector jobs at a time when UI is necessarily generous are the kind of dollars that are likely only going to be deployable by the federal government, given the scale of it. And so that's a discussion that we're having ongoing with our congressional delegation. We are looking at what the state could do as well on some of the incentive pay issues. But I'd say, just generally speaking, our advice, and it is just advice because businesses and workers have to make their own decisions, but staying in a job is way better than being on UI. The connection to your workplace is going to make this recovery a lot better. Obviously, if you can stay connected from a health insurance perspective, that's a major benefit. You really don't want to be in a position, and I don't think most Minnesotans want to be in a position where they would proactively stop working to get benefits. But is that re-entry piece, to your point, Senator, that's challenging? And I wish I had a better answer for you on it, but it's something that we're tracking with a congressional delegation as well. And then your last point on reopening businesses, we are being both reactive and proactive. The form that we have is reactive, but we're doing a lot of proactive things as well. We have a couple of different work groups with business leaders across the state on social distancing and on just economic security in general, where we're getting great advice from business leaders. I'm on the phone with probably 4 or 5 different CEOs a day outside of even those meetings, asking, for example, the guys at Amazon and Shakopee, how are they doing the temperature screening at their plant every day? Or the team at Cambria, how are they looking through some of the challenges that they're facing? I'm talking to manufacturers who are instituting some kind of unique challenges around, like, the break room moments, those times between shifts where people naturally want to congregate together better. How can they get social distancing right in those moments? So we're talking to just about everybody out there. And I think, the Minnesota Chamber has been a really great source of aggregating some of the chamber advice too. Doug Loon has given us a ton. I'm on the phone with him almost every day, getting advice from him from the lens of the chambers. Charlie Weaver and the team with the Minnesota Business Partnership get us on a call once a week with hundreds of business leaders across the state, where we have very active discussions and getting feedback from them. We do a call twice weekly, Monday and Thursday morning at 7 a.m. with the chambers directly themselves to both answer questions and get ideas on these pieces. So there's a proactive and a reactive, to your point. Both are really important. It is not a fun thing right now to drive down a main street in a small town, to your point. It's sad, and we know that, and I think everybody knows that, and it's on our minds every day. And it's we also don't want to make sure that we're discriminating to only let big businesses stay open because we think they can kind of handle it given the larger square footage compared to a smaller business. So these are the kinds of things that we're grappling with. We want to be methodical and careful about it, but I think you're right on that we've got to be proactive about this, and that's why the governor's asked us to engage in this planning, and why we're eager to do it and to hear advice from you all as well.
And thank you, Commissioner and Senator Uckey. Just to follow up on one of Senator Uckey's questions around the payroll protection, if I could just take a quick moment. I got alerted to a small business owner in my district who says that they have to make that payroll payment within an 8-week period in order for the loan to be forgivable. And I guess my question is, if they try to do that retroactively, pay people retroactively, will those that received unemployment benefits have to pay them back? But also, if they offer the payroll protection, must someone take it, or is that considered a resignation from the unemployment perspective?
Mr. Chair, I think so. I want to make sure I understand the question correctly. So is it that essentially, is it the same use case that Senator Uckey was outlining, where you have workers who've already let go and you're trying to rehire them? Or are you saying that if
both? So they've been out of work for 3 weeks, and the employer is willing to pay their 3 weeks that they weren't working, pay that salary. But then also, again, the Senator Uckey's question, I guess, is there a requirement that someone go back to work if they're offered payroll protection wages?
Yeah. Mr. Chair, it's a good question. My sense is that they would need to go back to work because a job is available to them and it's in a critical sector industry. By definition, if you're able to still bring folks in under the state's policy of the stay-at-home order. But I don't want to answer in every case on this, and I want to dig into this with my team, and I will circle back with you directly on that because I think it's an important question, and I want to make sure we get that one right.
Thank you. And I'm sorry, Senator Champion, I jumped over you, but we have Senator Champion and Senator Cohn. Senator Champion, you're on mute.
Okay, I'm trying to get off mute here. And because the commissioner was stuck for a minute there, so I was hitting my buttons and everything. Okay. Commissioner, I have 3 questions and they sort of build on what has already been asked. So I'm grateful that the others had asked some questions. And I wanted to, first of all, start by saying that your department has been doing a great job and you've been responsive and you all have been putting forth your best efforts in a very challenging situation. As it pertains to this is reopening, at one time I heard that this gathered data that you are getting when people complete the form and as to suggestions of how people could potentially reopen and still adhere to CDC guidelines would require each business individually to articulate a plan to you all as to how they're going to do that. Is that still what you all are thinking? And if you are thinking about that, how are you going to do that operationally? Because that seems like that would be rather cumbersome. So that's number one. Number two, I have been receiving a couple calls from constituents as well as other senators around getting through to the department in order to ask some of these questions that you've already talked about. And I guess I just want to confirm that we should respond by saying that our constituents should attempt to make contact with the department online and or if they call, just be prepared to not get anyone or to have to get put in the queue. And last, but certainly not least, as it pertains, well, that one really pertains to that pandemic unemployment insurance and folks just, again, not feeling very comfortable with that process as to how that sounds, because it sounds really like a conflicting message. Oh, I did have one last question. And then we know that people of color have been hardest hit as it pertains to this unemployment scenario, and we know all Minnesotans are hurting, so I'm not comparing that. Is there anything that we can do in order to make sure that the ever-changing messages, because you guys are getting new information, is being done through, ethnic media or others and language, translators? I guess that's the best way of putting it. So those are my 3 or 4 questions.
Mr. Chair, Senator Champion, great questions. And if I could take the prerogative to go back to Senator Pratt's, or was it Senator? Yeah, it was Senator Pratt's question that I think built off of Senator Rucky's question on the incentives. My team texted me because they're amazing and they are of course watching, and they confirmed your point, Senator Pratt, which is that you will need to go back to work if you're asked to go back to work in a critical sector industry, and that you cannot double dip, and that you will need to repay unemployment insurance if you get back pay from your employer. So if your employer is covering those wages when you were out, you got to pay the state back and you got to go back to work. Now, there may be other circumstances that are related to a specific person's case, so I don't want to make a blanket rule, but that's the general policy that is there. So affirmative to your question. Senator Champion, to your question, so the plans on what it would take to get back to work and how individual businesses could create plans that ensure that they are abiding by CDC guidelines. I think our feeling on this is that any non-critical business that goes back does need to have a plan, and a plan that essentially just is pulled from the guidance that has already come from CDC and OSHA. You're right. Submitting that to us for review would be impossible. We're not in the place of trying to create a whole new bureaucracy for reviewing business plans. But I think making sure that businesses who are going to re-enter the market have the right guidance available for their workers that relates to things like health screening, relates to things like hand washing, physical distance in a business, things like that that are all part of CDC guidelines, but that need to be adapted to the unique setting of an individual business, given every business is different, has different, physical space, et cetera, is important. But I do not anticipate that we are, and we haven't released the strategy here yet, but I do not anticipate that we're going to be reviewing every business's plans. That's not a scale or scope or role that we think government should play. Now, we can maybe see those plans if there are complaints coming in, but reviewing those plans does not seem prudent or even doable. I think you had a question on contacting us directly. I think somewhat similar to Senator Little's question at the top. I think, we're all flooded, and that doesn't mean we should ignore the flood. We need to find a way to get people the answers that they need, but it is a truly pressing time. I do think that pointing people to web resources first is important, even though it's not ideal when you want to talk to somebody. There is a ton of information on mn.gov/deed and on uimn.org. But if you need to call in, you should call in. And I think you're probably referring primarily to unemployment insurance and that call center. We're hiring by the day. Call times are around between an hour and an hour and a half. And we're getting about 6,000 calls a day, just to give you a scope of that. It's about, it's like 15 calls a minute or something like that. So it's a stunning amount of calls. We can only take so many, but I would just say to constituents who do need to call in, just stay on the line. And we will answer your question, as they say, in the order it was received. And look at the guidelines on our site for which days you should call in for which issues, because we're trying to kind of triage it out that way so that we can help people most efficiently because of that. And then you asked about pandemic unemployment insurance, and I think you asked primarily about ethnic media outreach in that context. And I think we are actively, in most cases, because the press interest is so high, we're in receiver mode, because we just get requests from press every day to engage. With ethnic media, we're in very much proactive mode. So we're reaching out to ethnic media across the state. We're doing lots of interviews in different languages, even where we have DEED staff who speak those languages, to make sure we're getting the news out to audiences who might not otherwise hear it. And we welcome advice on how we can get that even better. But it's more important now than ever before. So thank you for that question.
Next, we have Senator Cohn, then Senator Draheim and Goggin.
Okay, thanks, Mr. Chairman. Commissioner, my question is not quite as practical, but a budget question. I've been trying to track the CARES money in terms of various pots that have come into the state and so on. And you talked about the unemployment money. Is there anything else relative to DEED, with the anticipated crash of state revenues? I wonder if there's anything else that you have coming in as best you know, and how much that might be.
Mr. Chair, Senator Cohn, it's a good question. Right now we've been mainly focused on the SBA dollars that we're helping shepherd and point to, and then the UI dollars that are coming in. As it relates to the broader package and where those federal dollars could be applied to state programs, I think that's still very much an ongoing discussion. There isn't a particular revenue stream yet that we've identified or tackling, but it's important. And I think as we look at the projections that'll be coming out in the coming days from the Office of Management and Budget, we're thinking about this kind of holistically as an enterprise as it relates to our reserves and our outlook. So more to come there.
Thank you. Senator Draheim.
Thank you.
Senator Draheim,
Chair.
you're up.
Yep. Thank you, Chair Pratt. And thank you, Commissioner. And I wanted to give you a shout out for that call the other night. I really appreciated that. I know you're extremely busy. I guess the number one issue I get, I've had probably 20 conversations with self-employed people today alone that are freaking out because they don't have answers. So we have to figure out as a team, we have to figure out how do we get back to these people that are self-employed. One suicide probably 20 miles from me right now. And I'm afraid of that if we don't get answers to these people. I ordered a pizza yesterday and they're able to send me an email back confirming that they got my order. Is there something we can do for the unemployment to get an auto response? Because half of them just want to know that their filings were in process. So that's one comment. The timeline not getting answers on unemployment. The federal $600, kind of to dovetail off some of the other discussion. I've had 6 employers tell me that their employees are handing them letters saying they're afraid of the COVID-19 and they want to go on unemployment because they can make more on unemployment than they can working. So you had mentioned before that you can send us a list of what's expected to get companies back open. So if you could, or I'm asking you, I guess, to send me a list, or all of us a list. What are you expecting from companies? How do you expect them to operate? If you can get us to help them start thinking of how to open, that would be great. And then the same thing for the unemployment. So to get people back to work, because I'm worried, and I think most employers are worried, that they're going to be unemployed for 4 months, no matter if we turn this thing around next month or not, unless we have some action we can get to get them back into those critical jobs, even though they took unemployment and maybe the owners took out the PPP program. But when you're doing your budget, you might as well figure 4 months, because everybody's going to take that extra $600 a week until that ends. On the grants, I have a message from one of the self-employed individuals that her expenses are $6,800 a month. Sole proprietor, qualified for $321 through the $10,000 grant program, I believe. So there's some real gaps, and most of the gaps are for the self-employed. But we have to figure out something immediately for these people because they can't collect unemployment. Most of them haven't had any revenue in a month or 5 weeks. So self-employed people, grants, loans, the $200,000 loan program, my bank says they still haven't got instructions on how to operate that loan program. And you said that there was one nonprofit that was able to give one loan out. So I'd like some more information on that. And I have about 5 more questions, but I know we're running out of time. So thank you.
Mr. Chair, Senator Graham, thanks for all those questions. I think you're telling some pretty compelling stories from your district. And I just want to say that there aren't always great answers to all those questions, but we need to keep asking them and keep telling those stories. So I don't think my responses will be adequate, but I'll do the best that I can. I think, we're trying to get the word out as much as possible that if you get a denial message and you're self-employed, it does not mean that you're denied, but that we will get back to you. I can look into the issue with our team of changing the wording of that message to give people a little bit more hope if that's possible. I'm just trying to make sure that they spend every second of every day just actually processing the technology changes that need to take place to get the actual benefits out there. But I think it's a fair point, and I'll circle back on it. You mentioned what we have come to call, the health department has helped define for us, the worried well. People who are worried about going to work, but they're actually in great physical condition, they are not treated the same by the health department officials or by our office as a vulnerable population or someone who has been exposed or who has COVID or whose family has COVID. And so I think for a very good reason, because we have to focus on those who most need the help and most have the reasons to be separated from work because of COVID. If you're just worried, I mean, everyone's worried. So I think we have to draw some lines there on eligibility based on actual access and exposure to COVID. In terms of the list of plans for businesses, as I've said throughout this conversation, we are working diligently and openly sharing best practices that we're hearing from businesses who are socially distancing. So that will continue to be a very public process that we're engaging those plans directly. And on small businesses who don't have access to some of these funds, I think we always put them to the SBA first. Our small business emergency loan program is a powerful place to go as well. And, I think that pandemic unemployment insurance will help too. But I'm not going to pretend like there's a solution for every gap. And we know people are struggling. And I think the federal government has almost all the levers in this case. And where state government can fill in the gaps, we're moving as fast as we can. And we continue to welcome ideas. So all good questions, not perfect answers. We're giving the best efforts that we can here alongside all of you. And I think, we're proud to partner with you on these things and want to continue to hear what you're hearing from businesses and that as we're hearing from them every day as well. A last quick circle back to Senator Cohen's question on federal funding. We have, I just got another text from my team. We have gotten some money through the CDBG program, Community Development Block Grant Program. I think it's around $2 million. We're still navigating where that funding would go, but I did want to make that small note that there is one other additional stream of federal funding that I forgot to mention. With that, Mr. Chair, if it's okay with you, I'm going to step aside here. I have another meeting, but Deputy Commissioner of Economic Development Kevin Mckinnon is here to answer further questions. And again, just wanted to thank you all for the time and for your leadership and for the collaboration during this time for the state. So thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. Appreciate your time. Let me see here. Next, we have Senator Goggin, followed by Senator Housley, Rarick, and Isaacson.
Okay, thank you, Senator Pratt, Chair Pratt. I appreciate that. I'm going to echo what Senator Draheim's comments were. I just got an email from a close high school friend of mine that his cattle farm, he's out of business now, and he says he's probably never going to be back in the cattle farming business again. He's applied for PPP, he's applied for UI, multiple programs, the SBA, you name it. He says he's been denied everywhere he's went. Also, Rydell Skating Shoes Company, they're in their 75th year. I don't know why they can't be back making their skates. They've got high demand for their roller blades because people are at this time of year wanting to get out and get some exercise, and also for their mental stability as well. They want to get out there and feel like they can continue living their lives and not be cooped up all the time. So that's a couple of things there. And I also got an email from our mayor in Minneska, and it's the not knowing. It's, people have put in their applications. It's been 3-4 weeks. They're hearing nothing. They're getting no feedback from DEED. They call up there and they either don't get anybody on the phone, or the person on the phone says, yeah, we're still processing your application. And that's all the information they get. So it's the not knowing that is really bothering people the most in that area. But my other question is, we have that additional business property tax. We're the only state in the nation that has that. Has there been any discussion about stopping that tax for this year and using that roughly $120 million that comes in annually on that tax and allowing the businesses to use that to keep their businesses afloat? And that's where I'm going to end it right there. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Goggin. Mr. McKinnon.
Mr. Chair, Senator Goggin, thank you for the information on some of the issues in your region. Obviously, that is something that we are will try and take care of from a response perspective. And as it relates to your second question, sorry, Senator Goggin, I just forgot your second question.
That was in regards to the additional business property tax that we have in this state.
Right. That's right.
Has there been any talk of stopping the collection on that tax and letting our businesses use that money to stay afloat and have a business for their employees to come back to soon?
Yeah, and Mr. Chair, Senator Goggin, I am not aware of discussions on that topic, and so I can't comment on that at this point.
Okay. Next, we have Senator Housley, Rarick, and then Isaacson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Deputy Commissioner McKinnon. I am just wondering, for the record, so people that are watching online, I know we got an email the other day addressing this, but I'm just wondering where it's at. The self-employed UI will for sure be backdated.
Mr. McKinnon?
Senator Housley, your question was the self-employed UI will be backdated
Yeah, to the beginning of this, March 29th.
to the beginning of this. I believe that that is true. That it is able to be backdated until I believe it's March 20th. If that date rings a bell.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, Senator Rarick and then Senator Isaacson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And that was actually my number one question as well. That's the big thing I'm getting from these folks who have been denied, is wondering, are their benefits going to start when they finally get approved, or is it going to go all the way back? And I sure hope we make it retroactive for them, because they've made their application and it's basically just issues on our end that they're not getting accepted yet. So, and I also want to concur with Senator Draheim. I've heard several folks that have got these letters brought in from their employees saying, I'm worried about getting COVID and I want to be laid off. And, I think that's going to be something we have to figure out, that, if they're not in a high risk category, that's not going to be acceptable to bring in and go on unemployment rather than working, because Commissioner stated, and I agree 100%, we're not going to recover from this economically if people aren't going back to work. But I have two other questions then, to kind of together two sectors of people that are being denied as well, would be if they had two jobs and they got laid off from one, and they're looking for that supplemental, they seem to be being denied. And then also people who were drawing Social Security, but having a job, and then they got laid off and they seem to be being denied. So I don't know if you can answer right now, if you could get back to us, that whether folks in those situations should actually be able to be receiving some benefits. And then in regards to, I get it, you're being overwhelmed, but in my area, I have a number of folks who do not have internet access for making application. What are the timeframes that your phone lines are open, so that I can make sure folks know that who have to call in?
Yeah, thanks for the question, Senator Rarick. So to your first question, essentially, folks just can't quit working and get UI. That's obviously not how the program works. But I will say to all of you that I'm not the unemployment insurance expert here. So unfortunately, I'm probably not going to have a lot of answers to your questions, and specifically on some of the denial issues from Social Security plus employment and the two job situation. I'm going to have to get back to you with answers on that. As it relates to the phone lines, I believe the phone lines are open daily, including Sundays, and generally somewhere in the neighborhood from 8 to 4:30. I believe that there's extended hours on various days as well, which do go into the evening. And I can look that up very quickly and give you an answer by the time the next question comes in.
Okay, thank you. Next we have Senator Isaacson, myself, Draheim, and Champion. Senator Isaacson, I know you had a follow-up to a question, and I saw it late and I wasn't sure which question it was a follow-up to.
I understand. First one, it was actually something Senator Draheim had posted in a chat to us that I thought was interesting. And I'm just wondering if there has been thought about, or what the mechanics are, and how we're going to process cases where someone says, I am nervous about getting COVID, and even though I'm not a high-risk person, I'm not comfortable coming to work. And how that dovetails into the question of people that are getting paid more on unemployment than not. I'm not convinced that's probably a huge problem, but it's a big enough problem we should probably be managing. And so my question is what is the policy? Is there a policy? How does one manage something like that? Because it seems like it's kind of abstract. That's my first question.
Senator Isaacson, that's a difficult question for me to answer right now from a policy perspective, and also from a response perspective. I can tell you on the business side, we're inundated with those types of questions all the time, and that's really on the business side. And unfortunately, as it relates to the unemployment side of the agency, those are the types of questions that that we're pondering all day long, and particularly as it relates to opening up additional industries here. I have heard, and many employers have reached out to me, similar to all of you and your constituents, asking those very same questions, and the employers as well. The employers that I've talked to and the stories that I've heard, they are incredibly concerned about their employees.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And their safety, and so they want to do this right too. In fact, on Saturday, this past weekend, I had a great conversation with a gentleman who has gone to great lengths to keep his employees safe and to help with their ability to deal with the situation and come to work. But I think in order to answer your question, I think the employer needs to raise the issue with the employee that it's a technical term. And so I think that you can find that info on the employer section of the website. Mm-hmm. And so we'll try and look for that and get you that answer.
So if I can just follow up on that real quick, Mr. Chair. It seems to me that as we begin the process of really narrowing down how we're going to get people back to work and opening up businesses that have some leeway that or are in a position to be able to apply the social distancing or whatever the rules are, it would be wise to have kind of a plan on that prior to it starting. So we're not fixing it as they come, but have to be proactive about it and putting together a group of people, whether it's from the chamber and labor or some electeds or just business leaders in the community we trust, but I mean, have a real understanding of what would be a good, just basic guideline to start with, just to give us some framework to work with, because I think if it's just left out there, it's going to create kind of a crazy kind of a situation ripe for, legal action and all kinds of controversy that's unnecessary. So I'm hoping you guys will take a proactive stance on that and provide some framework for that, even if it's not like hard and fast, but just something as a place to start with, because I don't want to see businesses getting locked up and problems with unemployment and having all kinds of unnecessary battles through, the administrative judges that have to solve things, and we can just streamline that ahead of time in some way. And if I can be of help, I'd like to volunteer Senator Draheim, who I know is just itching to get on this. And so I'm sure he'd appreciate something else to do besides sitting around at home being quarantined. So, and I'll even help him. I'll throw myself in there. Looks like Senator Barrick's interested. I feel like I'm watching there we go. The second question I have is, and I might have missed this, so I apologize if this went out. I am inundated with 3 kids at home 24 hours a day, which has just been awesome. So I have been getting calls, particularly from some of my small businesses like dentists and those kind of things, who want to know what are the options they can go for. And I'm sure it's listed on the website. But I'm wondering, is there like a quick and dirty list that I could have or that I could use as part of my social media to get out there? So when I get a person that calls, I can say, these are the various areas you can go to. Something that's very focused and easy to understand, and something that I can then use as a way to, or businesses can use to begin to navigate that process. Anything I can do to bring that to them so that saves them a step, I would really love. And if that's been put out, I apologize if you could just resend it to me, but I don't know that I've seen anything like that yet. And so something like that would really just kind of lay out, these are all the SBA loans, and this is the federal programs we're working through, and this, just all the different little things like in bullet points, so I can quickly reference them and then send them out. especially when I'm doing town hall meetings with constituents. That'd be really helpful if we could have something like that, and maybe send it to myself. And I don't know if anybody else would want that, but that would be a really great way to for me to be able to kind of put that information out there as fast as possible. So thank you.
Yeah, Mr. Chair, Senator Isaacson, we can certainly send you what we have created, and basically sort of the eligibility of each of the various programs that you talked about. Of course, our emergency loan program is for businesses that were affected by Executive Orders 2004 and 2008. And I believe that the reference that you actually made was for dentists, and I believe that that was in Executive Order 2009, which unfortunately is not covered in our emergency loan program. However, many of those types of business obviously would be good candidates for SBA programs, and in addition, probably our loan guarantee program that we have out there as well. So, and I think I just want to answer. I don't recall if it was Senator Draheim's question, but the paperwork for us at Deed to enroll a loan is actually on our website, and so the bank, they have already enrolled with us. The bank or the type of lender that you're referring to, there's an enrollment form that they do for each loan, and so that's on our website as well. But we can send you all of that information.
Mr. McKinnon, please send it to the entire committee because I think it'd be helpful.
Real quick one.
Senator Isaacson, we're also working with the House to expand the emergency loan program statutorily to cover the dentists and clinics that were ruled as determined to be not critical. So we're working on that.
And the last comment I want to make, and I hope nobody gets too crazy here as I'm beginning to sound really bipartisan, as I also agree with Ucky in a rare moment, Senator Ucky. I want to say that this concept of this idea that, I go to Target for my stuff because there's nothing else around for me anymore to buy from, right? I buy my hardware locally. I use my insurance locally. I use my dentist locally. And, and I realize this has been a much bigger problem than COVID. But, man, he's right. If we can find a way to let, like a local dentist and everybody else that does that kind of stuff on a local level that does give towns a unique feeling, if we can be a part of that, helping them, even going above and beyond what we provide for some of the bigger corporations that have more cushion, I would definitely want to be a part of that. And I can't encourage you enough to really be thinking about that as we move forward, because I have so many of those kind of little businesses in my area, almost boutique in some ways, but they're an important part of our community. And I just don't think that as much as I totally, and I may be disagreeing with some people here, agree with the governor, on the back end, we've got to make sure we make this as painless as possible. And so I hope that you guys are thinking about that part. Thank you for letting me talk. Thanks.
Thank you, Senator Isaacson. I've got a couple of questions. We have Senator Draheim, Housley, and Champion in that order, and we have less than 15 minutes. So I'm going to try to be brief with my questions. Mr. McKinnon, if maybe you could be brief with your answers as well, so we can get as many in as we can. Another senator brought me an issue. Someone under 18 years old working a part-time job was laid off due to the governor's orders and can't collect on unemployment insurance, even though his employer has been paying in on his wages. And he's been using this money not only to pay for school, but also his car payment and some other things. Can you talk about why people under 18 can't collect unemployment if they're working and premiums should be paid on their wages?
Mr. Chair, I personally cannot talk about that. I do not know the answer to that question, but I will get you an answer.
Thank you. And then, probably just more of a comment, since this will probably be the last chance to speak. I want to reiterate that, and I think what you heard, and make sure this gets back to the department and to the governor. I think we're looking for very clear guidelines for businesses to open up. Again, we're not talking about the big box businesses. We're talking about our neighbors who own their own shops. And they are at a disadvantage, unfairly disadvantaged. And as you go through these plans, not only approve or deny, but I think the department has to be very proactive in being helpful in how to resolve that, so that the premise is to get to yes instead of make them guess about it. The department's done a great job of communication, working through some really difficult situations, but I just wanted to put that out there. Next, we have Senator Draheim. One more time. Senator Draheim, please be brief so we can get as many in as possible.
I'll pass. Let the other guys go. I'll follow up with an email. Thank you.
Senator Housley.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. I've just been hearing from constituents that one of them banks at Wells Fargo, and they put all of their information in, but they get an email back that says, thank you for your information. You remain in the queue, but they don't have the money available to them yet. Then they went to their smaller bank, same thing there. Then they went to their credit union, and the credit union, they can't even link to the SBA. And so they're going without unemployment. Any advice, what they can do, or what you're hearing out there, what these people can do right now, because they're hurting?
So basically, they've applied to these programs, and they have just not heard back as to what their status is.
It says you remain in the queue.
Yeah. This is common that I have heard as well, that the time that it does take for the assistance to be processed. I was actually quite surprised, and in a good way, to see the SBA numbers and the amount of paycheck protection loans that have been done in Minnesota already, 34,000. Comparatively across the U.S., that's really good. But I also know, in having talked to a lot of our banks, that they too are overwhelmed, just like all of us are, and all of you on a daily basis. And so we've heard also a lot of folks that if you're not customers of that bank, that they're taking care of their own customers first. This is an incredibly tough time, and I think we all know that and see that, unfortunately, every day. Saying, whether it's very difficult to tell somebody, to be patient. There is assistance on the way, but unfortunately, in a lot of cases, that is the answer. Now, with some of the other programs, and particularly around the SBA, obviously, there's some funding issues, and Congress is trying to address that. And certainly some lending limitation issues that Congress is also trying to address and has addressed, that also has pieces of this. So unfortunately, I think I'd like to think, and I know from the lenders that we deal with, they're working as quickly as they can through the many applications that they have.
Thank you, Senator Housley. Senator Champion.
Brief question, Deputy Commissioner. Would your analysis change if an individual was working for a business and was afraid to go back to work because they have an underlying medical condition, even though it's not giving them a problem? Let's say they're diabetic, they're managing their diabetes, but now with COVID, they're a little afraid just because of, any infection would probably be much more challenging for them, especially with their medical condition. Would your analysis change, and/or would that be someone else that they should go to try to get resources as opposed to through the UI benefit?
Yeah, Senator Champion, I do not know the answer to your question. However, I do believe that there is some protections for people who have those underlying conditions from going back to work. But I can get that answer to you as quickly as we can.
Thank you. That'd be great.
Okay.
And
I'm sorry, what was that?
Senator Pratt, could I just answer a question that you actually had earlier?
Sure.
This was about the unemployment insurance for someone that was under 18. Per state law, they are not eligible for unemployment insurance. However, we believe that they might be eligible for pandemic unemployment assistance.
Okay. Well, thank you, Commissioner and members. We have a hard stop here at 12:30. Just to keep everybody on the same loop. Watch your emails for some for future meetings. Senator Isaacson, as I mentioned, we're going to be working to try to get an update on the loan program. We've also been talking to Senator Herr about some help for micro businesses. We've had a little discussion about what does it mean to be a micro business. Some of the definitions are 10 employees and fewer, or 250,000 in sales or less. I think Senator Herr's looking at even smaller than that. So hopefully to bring something to the committee as early as Monday. I certainly want to take up confirmation hearings still. We had put those on hold for a period of time. The initial timeline was to do them about now after deadlines passed. But I still want to get those through and voted on. With that, are there any other questions for me?
Senator Pratt, you in fact almost answered it, but you didn't give us a timeline as to when we are going to do the confirmations, because I noticed in our session yesterday that the confirmation for the Dolly Commissioner, I think it was returned back to our committee. So I was a little concerned about that question and the timeline.
So, Senator Champion, the commissioner's appointments are routed to the committee through the Rules Committee. We have 60 legislative days to act on them, or they're returned back to the confirmation calendar for Rule 8.2. And in previous floor sessions, we've taken up Bureau mediations, IRRR, and DEED and moved them back to our committee. But because Commissioner Olympic didn't actually start until April, hers was the last one. And so we've done this with every other commissioner in our committee, just because we went past 60 legislative days. But again, we're still working on what the finalized calendar is. What I'm hearing is that we have some potential bills that would be COVID related that would be going through our committee, and I want to give those bills priority as we go along, because I know we're all interested in helping our small businesses make it through this difficult period. But also we want to make sure that we're able to springboard off this and recover very, very quickly, or as quickly as we can. The fact of the matter is, we know that a lot of these jobs that are lost are never coming back. We're over 400, we're rated about 460,000 or more people who have filed for unemployment. I think the commissioner said we have a 14% unemployment rate when compared to what our workforce was heading into this crisis. And so This is going to be a long process for us. And, but Senator Champion, I know I've reached out to you a couple of times, and I will continue to stay in touch with you as far as what the schedule looks like. But I think it's important that we do the work that's in front of us. And again, you know, as we talk about this emergency loan program, even though we're past deadline and we'll have to put this through rules, I think it's important that we do it because our committee, along with some of the others, are really on the front lines of dealing with the economic fallout from the COVID-19 crisis. Does that answer your question, Senator Champion?
Yes, it does. And thank you so much. And I'll try calling you later today.
Sure. Any other questions or comments? All right. Well, seeing none, thank you, members. I thought, you know, not a bad trial run here for our committee. And we'll stand adjourned until Monday at 1 o'clock. And I don't have a gavel, so you'll just have to assume I gavelled out. Thank you.